You know, we're all taught that waste is just a problem, something to get rid of, something that costs money to deal with. But what if that's completely wrong? What if those mountains of stuff we throw out every single day are actually hidden gold mines? Let's find out how today's trash is literally becoming tomorrow's fortune.
When you look at a picture like this, your first thought is probably, what a mess. You think about pollution, overflowing landfills, the cost of cleanup. It just looks like the end of the road for these materials, right? A total liability.
But here's the big idea. What if we're looking at this from the wrong angle? What if this isn't an endpoint, but a starting line? This isn't just trash. It's a huge collection of raw materials just waiting for a new life. And for someone smart, it's a blueprint for an incredibly profitable business. So where does this wild idea come from? Today, we're digging into a book called 37 Projects to Wealth by an entrepreneur named Ahmad Fauzi. Now, this guy has spent over 25 years building businesses on 4 different continents, and he's basically created a real-world playbook for turning what everyone else throws away into serious cash. Okay, so how in the world does this actually work? Let's start with a fundamental concept that flips the entire waste industry on its head. At its core, this whole thing is about hazardous waste recycling. But look, this is way more than just being good for the planet. It's about smart, strategic resource recovery. You take materials that are actually dangerous to the environment, you neutralize the bad stuff, and then you pull out the valuable components that are locked inside. And with the price of raw materials going up and disposal laws getting tougher, this isn't just a niche idea anymore. It's a massive economic opportunity.
All right, enough theory. Let's get our hands dirty with the first project. We're going to start with something I guarantee you've seen before: used motor oil. Think about it. Every single oil change at every garage and service station generates this stuff. It is a constant, massive stream of hazardous waste. But that black, sludgy liquid is so far from worthless. It's basically crude oil that's just gotten a little dirty. The real magic happens in a process called re-refining. The best way to think about it is like a super high-tech filter. It scientifically strips out all the gunk, the dirt, the water, the old additives, and what you're left with is a clean, high-quality base oil. And that oil is ready to be used all over again in new engines, industrial machines, you name it. Okay, so this is where it gets really exciting. Fauzi's book breaks down the actual numbers. So let's imagine a pretty small facility, one that processes just 5 tons a day. You buy the raw, used oil, you pay for your processing costs, and then you turn around and sell the finished, clean product for a 5 times markup. So what does that actually look like? When you do the math for a full year of operation, you are looking at a potential annual profit of $1.86 million. I mean, that is absolutely staggering. It's pure profit from recycling something that most people literally pay to get rid of. And get this, the return on your investment is just as wild. Even after you factor in the startup costs for all the permits and the machinery, which is about $1.5 million, you could make all of that money back in roughly 1 year. It's not just profitable, it's profitable fast. Okay, let's keep this going. We're going to shift gears from a liquid waste to a very, very solid problem: scrap tires. I mean, we've all seen those giant piles of old tires, right? They're huge, they're ugly, they never biodegrade, and they are a massive headache to dispose of. But through the recycling process, these mountains of rubber trash get transformed into this clean, uniform, and super useful material called crumb rubber.
So what do you do with crumb rubber? Well, the list of uses is kind of crazy. It's the stuff they use for infill on artificial sports fields. It gets molded into super durable flooring for cars. It's a key ingredient in brake pads. They even mix it into asphalt to make our roads last longer. The demand is already out there, and it's huge.
But check this out. Here's a really cool, specific opportunity from the book. You don't even have to grind the tires all the way down to a crumb. If you just chop them up into little 5 by 5 centimeter pieces, you create a product that cement factories are desperate for. They burn it as a really powerful and cheap alternative fuel for their kilns.
And the demand for this fuel is just off the charts. We're talking up to 2,000 tons per week. So even after your costs for collecting and chopping up the tires, Fauzi's model shows that, based on market prices, just this one product could bring in revenues of around $200,000 every single month. Okay, for our last deep dive, let's look at maybe the most common waste item of all: the plastic bottle, specifically PET plastic.
Yeah, that water bottle, that soda bottle. Chances are it's made of PET plastic. Billions and billions of these things are used and tossed out. But what if, instead of choking a landfill, they were collected and chemically transformed into a raw material called unsaturated polyester resin? That's a key building block for making everything from boat hulls and car parts to pipes and construction materials. And just to be clear, this is not some small-time backyard operation. It takes a serious industrial-scale production line like this one to handle the sheer volume and turn that plastic trash into a valuable, high-grade industrial commodity. The process itself is pretty straightforward, really. First, the bottles are shredded into tiny flakes. Then they get a thorough washing to get rid of any dirt or labels. After they're dried, they're melted down, ready to be reborn as a brand new industrial material. So what's the bottom line on this one? Well, according to the financial model in the book, a plant producing about 500 tons of this resin a year could be looking at an annual profit of over $660,000. It's just another incredible example of finding wealth in waste. So, from used oil to old tires to plastic bottles, we've seen 3 clear examples of how these so-called waste streams are actually massive streams of opportunity. Now let's just zoom out and think about what this all means. You know, as the author Ahmad Fauzi puts it himself, this book isn't just a collection of cool ideas. These are proven, real-world business models. They're backed by hard numbers and decades of hands-on experience. It really is a blueprint for anyone who's willing to look at the world just a little bit differently. So, the next time you see a pile of junk on the side of the road or toss a bottle in the recycling bin, maybe you won't just see a problem anymore. Maybe you'll see a resource. You'll see potential. The opportunity is truly all around us. The only question left is, what waste will you transform?